Hello everyone, welcome to UPSC Digital Library. Welcome to the complete course on ancient Indian history. In the last chapter, that is chapter 2, we saw the prehistoric India and the Harappan civilization. The Harappan civilization declined by 1750 BC. So what happened next? We are not trying to mug up the history. Instead, we are trying to understand the chronology and we are trying to understand the story as a series of events. So let us understand what happened in our country when the Harappan civilization declined. So let us start our chapter 3, the Vedic culture. Now, as you all know, that the Harappan culture declined by 1750 BC. Now, from 1750 BC up to 1500 BC, we do not exactly know what happened. It is because we do not have any archaeological records for the same. Now, it is possible that around this period, the speakers of the Indo-Aryan language, that means the Aryan people who used to speak Sanskrit, they entered the northwestern India from the Indo-Iranian region, or you can say the Central Asia. यानी कि आर्य लोग जो संस्कृत भाषा बोलते थे वो भारत के नॉर्थ वेस्ट इंडिया में इंडो इरानियन रीजन से प्रवेश करना शुरू कर दिया. I have already explained you that in the geographical features of India that our nation has a very big range of mountains. In between those mountains, we have a few passes from where the people have kept on coming to our country. So it is through these passes that initially these people would have come. Initially, they would have settled down to the valleys of Northwest, and later on they would have moved to the Indo-Gangetic plains. Now, one remarkable thing which you guys must know is the Harappan civilization was very advanced. They had a remarkable town planning, remarkable art and culture. They had beautifully designed grid city plans. They had citadel, they had upper town, lower town. But when we talk about this Vedic period, which began from 1500 BC, now they were mainly a cattle keeping people. वो एक चरवाहे थे. They were mainly in search of pastures. That means they were mostly nomads. Now see, suddenly we do not know what happened, that from such a intelligent and such a beautifully technologically driven society, how we again came back to such a society where we do not use such kind of extensive technologies. All right. Now, as you can see here, from the northwestern India, people, these Aryans started moving and they were aware about the use of horses. Now, as far as the Harappan culture is concerned, we are not sure whether they knew about horses or not. And as you can see from this picture, mainly they were search for grasses so that they can feed their cows and their other animals. All right. So now, if I talk about this Vedic culture, now I can divide this entire period 1500 BC to 600 BC into two periods. The first one is the early Vedic period, which is also known as the Rig Vedic period, and the time frame is roughly 1500 BC to 1000 BC. And if I talk about the later Vedic period, I can say that the time frame is 1000 BC to 600 BC. Now remember guys, this is very important for you to understand. Let's say this is the river Ganga. This is the eastern plains of the Ganga and this is the western plains of the river Ganga. During the early Vedic or the Rig Vedic time, they were only confined to the western side of the river Ganga. And if I talk about the later Vedic period, they crossed the river Ganga and they covered almost the entire of North India. That is why when I say 600 BC, which is the time frame for later Vedic period, I can say that by 600 BC, century BC, which is also known as 600 BC, they occupied the whole of North India, and this is referred to as the Aryavarta. Alright, I hope this point is clear. Now, where exactly are these Aryan people coming to our country? From where are these people coming? Now, this is a very debatable question, and different people have different views to it. Different scholars have different places which they considered is the original home to the Aryans. अलग अलग scholars इस पर debate करते हैं और इनके अलग अलग मत हैं. Different scholars believe that they have come from different places. Some say that they have come from Arctic region. Some say they have come from Germany. Some say they have come from Central Asia. And some say they have come from southern Russia. Now, when you guys will study about modern Indian history, you will study about a great freedom fighter, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, great social reformer. He argued that the Aryans came from the Arctic region on astronomical calculations. But mostly the historians, they agree that they have come from southern Russia. They started traveling from southern Russia and then they traveled to different parts of the world. All right. They traveled to different parts of Asia and they traveled to different parts of Europe. By 1500 BC, around, they entered India and they came to be known as Indo-Aryans. They spoke the language Sanskrit. All right. As you can see this map, they traveled here from the southern Russia to the Hindu Kush and then they entered. They might have also moved to the other parts of the Europe. I hope this point is clear. All right. Now, if I talk about the Vedic literature, now you guys must understand first of all, what does this word Veda means? The word is derived from the root word vid, which means to know, means to gain some knowledge. That means Veda means to earn some knowledge. In other words, Veda signifies superior knowledge. That means an individual who has read these four Vedas, Rig Veda, Yajur Ved, Sam Ved and Athar Ved, is considered to have superior knowledge. Now please understand, as I have differentiated the time frame, that is 1500 BC to 1000 BC, and I have told this is the early Vedic period. This is the time frame for Rig Veda. That means this is the time when this Vedic literature was established or this book was written. And when I talk about 1000 BC to 600 BC, I am talking about later Vedic period when these three books have been written down. All right. Now, when we talk about the first Vedic literature book, Rig Veda, this is one of the earliest of the four Vedas and it consists of 1028 hymns. Now, what were these hymns talking about? These hymns were sung in praise of various gods. So that means you guys will realize that during the early Vedic period, they were very much emphasizing on prayers. They wanted to sing song, they wanted to pray something in respect to the various gods which they used to believe. Now, the Yajur Ved, it has the details of rules which has to be observed at the time of sacrifice. Now, at that time, whatever sacrifices used to take place, for example, Ashwamedh or other kind of sacrifices, whatever. Now, whatever rules have to be observed, details of those rules were mentioned in that. Now, let's say you are singing those hymns And you also know the rules which have to be observed at the time of sacrifice. Now let's say if somebody sings a song, all right, there may be a different tune to it. Now you guys can pick up another song and use this tune and sing this song. मतलब अगर आप एक गाना गाते हो ए, उसकी कुछ ट्यूनिंग होगी। अब आप कोई दूसरा गाना उठा लो बी, उसकी कुछ और ट्यून होगी। अब आप गाना गाओ ए, लेकिन ट्यून ट्यून यूज करो बी की। दैट मीन्स यू सिंग अ सॉन्ग ए एंड यू यूज द ट्यून बी. So what I'm trying to tell you is in the Samved they have mentioned what should be the tune, what should be the purpose of chanting, how you have to do the chanting when you're doing the sacrifice, and it has to be exactly done as mentioned there. And that is why right now when we talk about the Indian music, it can be traced back to Samved because it tells you what should be the sur, lay, tal, or what should be the right tuning of singing something. Now, the Atharved will tell you details about the rituals which have to be followed. All right. Now, it is not just that the four Vedas were written down during the Vedic period. There are some other sacred words also, like the Brahmanas, the Upanishads, the Arankyas, and we nobody, I think so, would be unaware about Ramayana and Mahabharata. Now, the Brahmanas were related to the prayers and sacrificial ceremonies. The Upanishads, they were actually philosophical texts. Now, they were mostly dealing with the topics such as what is soul, what is the absolute meaning of life, what could be the origin of the world, what are the different mysteries of the nature. The Arankyas is also known as the forest book, and it had written various things related to forest. What are the different rituals and sacrifices related to the forest? Now, if I talk about the epic Ramayana, it was written down by Valmiki, and the Mahabharata was written by Ved Vyas. I hope this point is clear. Now let us start in detail about the Rig Vedic period or the time frame which is 1500 BC to 1000 BC. Now as I told you that if this is river Ganga, they were mostly confined to the western side of it. They did not cross the river Ganga to the complete North India during the early Vedic period. So the Aryans were mostly confined to the Indus region. Now Rig Vedic period is also referred to as the Sapt Sindhu or seven rivers. Sir, why it is called as the land of seven rivers? Because first of all, we all know that these are the five rivers in Punjab: Jhelum, Chenab, Ravi, Beas, and Satluj. Apart from that, they were confined to Indus and Saraswati, and thus 5 plus 2 is 7, and the place where these people stayed was referred to as the Sapt Sindhu. Now, one by one, let us understand what was their political organization, what was their social life, what was their cultural life of the Rig Vedic period. Sir, you are saying that you are going to tell us about the political life, social life, and cultural life. How do you know about it? I know about it from the hymns of the Rig Veda. That means in the Rig Veda, in the different hymns, they have mentioned how they used to organize themselves, what was their social life, and what was their cultural life, what was their economic life too. So from the written text, we have found out about it. So let's get started. So for the ease of understanding, I have drawn this diagram for you guys so that I can make you guys imagine or visualize what is the political organization of the early Vedic period or the Rig Vedic period. Now, the smallest political organization is a kul or a family. So a family which is living is the smallest political organization in which there will be a head of a family. Now, various such families, based upon their kinship or based upon their kuls, will join together and they will form a village or a gram. That is why now also you might have heard that, let's say, when a boy or a girl tries to marriage from the same village, the village elders they try to restrict. Ideally, now the government has passed the rules that any two people can marry unless they have blood relations. But still, if two people belong to the same village, they used to believe that they belong to the same kull and somewhere they are related to each other. So when various such families will join together, they will form a village or gram. Now again, when various such villages will join together, they will form a vishu, and the head of it is Vishyapati. Now, when various such Vishus will join together, they will form a tribe. Now, again, there are various tribes such as Bharata, etc. But then, when various such tribes will also join together, they will form a kingdom which is ruled by a king or a Rajan. I hope this political organization is clear to you guys. We can now understand this, that the basic unit of political organization is school or family. Various families will join together based on their kinship to form a village or gram or a village. The leader of a gram is known as Gramani. Now various such village can also join and form a Vishu. Now Vishu is headed by Vishyapati, as I told you. Now the highest political organization, the combination of such Vishu, is known as Jana or tribe. Alright. Now there were various tribal kingdoms during the Rig Vedic period, such as Bharat tribe, Matsyas, Yadus, Purus, etc. Now the head of the entire kingdom was Rajan or king. Now one thing which you guys must know is, during the Rig Vedic period, now they used to have elections. So that means they had some sort of democracy. So if a king is not ruling nicely, they had two popular bodies, Sabha and Samiti. Sabha was a council of all the elders of that kingdom, and Samiti was a general assembly of the entire people, including ladies. So we can also say that ladies were also given due respect in early Vedic period. Now, when a king would be exercising his political powers, he was assisted by a priest, which is also known as Purohit, and he also had a commander or Senani of his army to maintain his administration. Thus, I can say that a king had a priest and a king had a army commander or a Senani to take care of his administration. So this was the political organization. If I talk about the social life, generally this society was patriarchal. That means if somebody is having a land, so the son will get the land. But please understand that they were pastures. That means they were nomad people searching for grass for their cows and their other domestic animals. That is why cow was very important to them. So how will I say that this individual is wealthy and this individual is not wealthy? I will count the number of cows an individual has. If somebody has more cow, I will say he or she is more wealthy. Alright, the head of family was known as Grahapati. This I have told you. Monogamy was generally practiced. That means one man will have one wife. But polygamy was prevalent among the royal and noble families. So generally in kings or the army commanders, one man may have multiple wives. I hope this point is clear. Now women were given equal opportunities like men to develop their intellectual skills. We find that there were various women poets also, like Apala, Vishwavara Ghosha, Lopamudra during the Rig Vedic period. Now they were even allowed to attend popular assemblies. I have told you that they were able to attend samitis. Sabha was for elder people and samiti was for everybody. There was no concept of child marriage and there was no sati pratha practiced at that time. One more important thing was there was no rigid caste system. So let's say if a businessman wants to work as a priest, he or she can do so. I hope this point is clear to all of you. They all wore upper and lower garments made up of cotton and wool. They all wore various garments, ornaments. Now, apart from wheat, barley, milk and its product were also the chief food articles, and fruits and vegetables also. The eating of cow's meat was prohibited. Why, sir? As I told you, that cow was very precious to them. Even right now, that is why we hear people, the Hindu says that don't kill cow, it is very precious to us. So you can trace back the history from the early Vedic period. All right. Now, when they used to play games or in their social life, they played emphasis to music, dance, dicing. Dicing means gambling. With those games they used to play horse racing and chariot racing. That means they used to have a chariot in which there will be horses, and they used to have races. And as I told you, that it was not rigid. The social division was not rigid during the early Vedic period. All right. Now, if I talk about the economic life, all right. So agriculture came later on. Earlier, they were cattle rearing people. They were pastoral people. They were nomad people. But one important thing was they knew about iron. They were knowing about the use of iron. And that is why the plows which they will make for let's say for small scale agriculture, though they were not knowing agriculture, the chariots what they will make, the other articles what they will make, apart from copper and bronze which were known during Harappan civilization, they were also aware about iron. Another important thing was, now here various kinds of vessels were made for domestic use. Goldsmiths were active in making ornaments, so they had a very good economic life. One more important thing was they were trading mostly on barter system. Very rarely they were using gold and silver coins. But what was the main form of trading? Barter system. That means you give me something, I will give you something else. You give me wheat, I will give you clothes. I hope this point is clear to all of you. If I talk about their religion, they do not believed in idol worship. Yes, during the Rig Vedic period, they were not believing in idol worship. Instead, they were believing in the natural forces like earth, fire, wind, rain, and thunder. The most important Rig Vedic gods were Prithvi, Agni, Vayu, Varun, and Indra, out of which Indra was the most important god to them. I hope this point is clear. Now, Indra was most important to them. Second most important was Agni. It was believed that through yagyas and through various ceremonies, now whatever we are, let's say, giving to the god, whatever we are offering to the god in the fire, in the yagyas, थ्रू दी अग्नि इट विल बी रीच्ड टू दी गॉड. जो भी हम यज्ञ में देंगे, जो भी हम सामग्री यज्ञ में प्रोवाइड करेंगे, थ्रू अग्नि इट विल रीच टू गॉड. And even right now this is happening. People are believing in uh, various such things in yagya wherein they are giving many offerings hoping that it will reach god, so it can be traced back to Rig Vedic period. I hope this point is clear. It is not that all the gods were men. There were female gods also, like Aditi and Usha. Alright. There were no temples and there were no idol worships. Alright. What were given to the gods in the offerings in those yagyas? Well, ghee, milk, and grains. What was precious to them, they used to give during the offerings. Alright. There were elaborate rituals which were done during the worship. Remember, during the early Vedic periods, they played a great emphasis on prayers. But during the later Vedic period, which we will see from 1000 BC to 600 BC, the importance of prayers will decline and the importance of rituals will increase. Alright. Now let us start about the later Vedic period, that is from 1000 BC to 600 BC. Now, as I told you, that initially they were confined to the western banks of the Ganga, that is to the Indus Plains. During the later Vedic period, they moved east and they covered the entire of North India. All right, they expanded to the eastern parts of the Gangetic Plains, and this is mentioned in one of their precious texts, which is Satpatha Brahmana also. And various tribal groups and kingdoms, the name of them are also mentioned in later Vedic kingdoms. One more important thing is, it was during this time that when the kings and the tribes, they used to join together, and this time we find that the kingdoms were bigger in nature compared to early Vedic period. It is also the time when from nomads to pastures they became complete settled people, and they became agricultural people. Agriculture pradhan log ban gaye. All right. Now, in the later Vedic period, it is referred that there are three divisions of India. Aryavarta, because during the later Vedic period, they covered the entire of North India. The second was Madhya Desha, that is the central India, and Dakshin Pantha. Dakshin means south, so path means direction. Dakshin Pantha refers to the South India. All right. What was the political life during the later Vedic period? Now, as I told you, that larger kingdoms were formed. Many janas or tribes, they joined together to form large kingdoms, and hence the royal power increased. Now, one more important thing is, now the king started performing various rituals and sacrifices to perform their position, such as Rajsuya, Ashwamedh, which Vajpaya. Now let me give you an example about horse sacrifice, Ashwamedh. What a king will do is, a king will let free one of his horse. So the horse will keep running away and away and away. Now many of his army would run behind this horse. Now let's say they reached some other kingdom. So if that kingdom, they will let this horse go, that means they have accepted this king as their supreme commander. Or let's say if they stop this horse, then the battle will take place between these two kingdoms. I hope you guys are understanding. This is the way they used to strengthen their position through these rituals. Now, the king wanted to tell to the world that I am very powerful, and that is why he used to give to himself various such titles like Samrat, I am the Samrat, I am the sole ruler. Ahila Bhuvanapati, that means I am the lord of the earth. Raja Vishwajana, I am the king of the entire people, entire tribe. Ekrat. Alright, so these were the various titles what the kings assumed. Now, as I have told you, during the early Vedic period, the king was assisted by a priest or purohit and an army commander. Okay. Now, during the later Vedic period, apart from priest and an army commander, he also had a treasury officer, a tax collector, and a royal messenger. Obviously, when the kingdoms will start becoming bigger and bigger, it will become difficult for a king to administer through a small administrative unit, and hence he expanded his administrative people. Now, tax collector was responsible for revenue collection. Treasury officer was responsible for all these statements, how much money is coming and how much we are spending. He also had many royal messengers who was responsible to travel to different parts of the world to give his message and to maintain his contacts with the other kings. Now at the lower level also the administration was done. It was done through village assemblies. So right now what we call as the Panchayati Raj, which I have already taught you in our complete course on NCERT Polity Class 6. Same way they had village assemblies to carry out this. But remember the importance of Samiti and Sabha. That means Sabha means the people of the all the elder people of that kingdom, and Samiti means everybody of that community. This declined, that means democracy reduced, and king will give his his or her title to his or her son only. So that means now somebody else cannot become king. All right. I hope this point is clear. If I talk about their economic life, now they were no more nomads, no more pastures. Agriculture became their chief occupation. Iron now started becoming extensively used, and land was much more cultivated for agriculture. And as iron was used, it was easy for people to cut forest, क्योंकि लोहे से forest को cut करना becomes very easy. I hope this point is clear. They used to use various implements for cultivation. Besides barley, rice, wheat was also grown in a lot, and they also had knowledge of manure. Obviously, when cows were very important, through cow dung, the manure became very important to improve the fertilization of their land. Now, industrial activity also became very important, and specialized people came forward. There were people who knew about leather work. There were people who were good in carpentry. There were people who made great progress in pottery. And there were people who knew a lot about metal work. I hope this is clear. Now, that was about the internal trade. But then the foreign trade also became very extensive. During the later Vedic period, these people became familiar with the sea. And with countries like Babylon, their trade started prospering. One more hereditary merchants came up, which is known as Bania. Right now, they are a part of Vaishyas. The caste system became rigid. They carried trade and commerce, these Vaishyas. Now, these merchant class, they organize themselves into a group which is known as guilds. This is very important. Remember this. Into ganas, that means groups known as guilds. Now, as I told you, during Greek Vedic period, though there were some gold and gold coins, but mostly the form of trade was barter system. The barter system was prevalent. Now, in the later Vedic period, the gold and silver coins were mostly used. Gold coins were known as Satmana. Silver coins were mostly known as Krishnala, which were used as a medium of exchange. I hope this point is clear. The social system became very rigid. Now, if you are a priest, your son can become a priest, but somebody who is working as a farm worker cannot become a priest. So the social stratification became very rigid. I hope this point is clear. This was not very rigid during the early Vedic period. Thus, the four divisions of society, the Brahmin, Kshatris, Vaishya, and Shudra, became thoroughly established during the later Vedic period. And Brahmins and Kshatris were considered as the higher classes. The Brahmins, they occupied a higher position than a Kshatriya, but sometimes the Kshatriya will become so powerful that they will claim the status that they are bigger than the Brahmins. All right. Now, the power of father increased during the later Vedic period. During the early Vedic period, women were given a lot of respect, but now they were considered inferior and subordinate to men. Now, earlier I told you that in Samitis they used to go and they had political rights too of attending the assemblies. But during the later Vedic period, they lost their political rights too. Child marriages became common. And it's written in Aitreyi Brahmana that daughter has been described as a source of misery. She's so sad that now the women lost their respect during the later Vedic period. So it is not that the women were not treated equal to men from initially, it is from the later Vedic period this happened. But in the certain households, such as the royal families, the women were still enjoying their rights. Alright, I hope this point is clear. Now remember, I told you during the early Vedic period, they used to believe in natural forces such as Earth, Agni, Indra, but now they moved to idol worship during the later Vedic period. Indra, Agni, these gods lost their importance and new gods emerged out during the later Vedic period, such as Prajapati, the creator, which you say as the Brahma, the Vishnu, the protector, which you say as the Lord Shiva, sorry, the Vishnu, and Rudra, the destroyer, which you say as the Lord Shiva. So these three new gods came up and the idol worship became prominent. Moreover, the sacrifices were elaborated and they were only explained by the priest. So it was becoming very, very difficult for common person to understand. The prayers were reducing. Earlier, the people used to sit and they used to pray to the god. But now the priests were more emphasizing that no, you have to follow such sacrifice, you have to follow such elaborate process, and only hence you can reach to the god. So sacrifices and rituals, they became very much elaborate. And it is because of this reason we will find in the next chapter that Buddhism and Jainism, that they started emerging out. Obviously, a new religion will be formed because people who are in the existing religion will become fed up or will be sad by the current condition of it. I will give you guys an example. Now, the Vaishyas, they organize themselves into groups. I told you to remember, which is known as guilds. Now, you tell me, when they will do a lot of trade and commerce, their economic condition will improve a lot. They will earn a lot of money, but still they were considered inferior to Brahmins and to Kshatriyas. So you tell me, if they have a lot of money, don't you think they want to be treated equally and respected equally? So mostly these people were the ones, they do not want it to continue in Hinduism and they move to Buddhism and Jainism. See, I'm not trying to hurt anybody's sentiment. If I have done so, please forgive me. I'm just trying to teach you what is written in our books. And you guys must know what has happened. Don't just mug up the things, or we are born, we think that this and this is absolute. No, everything has a origin. So please try to understand how things have come up into the existence. Now, even the Upanishads, the author of Upanishads, which is the essence of the Hindu philosophy, they also started turning away from such rituals. They said, no, 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 we don't want to get into such rituals. We don't want to waste time in in those things. We want to understand how we can get peace, how we can get salvation, what is the true knowledge. So I hope this point is clear to all of you. Now, if I have to give you guys a quick recap, you guys can see that early Vedic period was from 1500 BC to 1000 BC, and later Vedic period was from 1000 BC to 600 BC. Here the class system was flexible and here it was rigid. Here, as the class system was flexible, here there was no untouchability. There was no such concept of Shudras, but concept of Shudras and untouchability started. Women had a higher position, they were respected. Here women's position declined. Here kingship was fluid because elections could happen and whosoever was worthy could become a king. But here it became rigid and it became hereditary. So the son of a king would become a king, and this happened. They were basically pasture and nomad people. They moved from one place to the other. They were cattle grazing people. But here they become settled people and they become agricultural people. Here the trade was happening mostly with barter system, and here the gold and silver coins became prominent. Here the book what was written during early Vedic time was Rig Vedic period, and here these three other Veds, Yajurved, Samved and Atharved came. I hope this is clear to all of you. I request all of you to please join our Telegram, Instagram and Facebook page so that you guys keep on getting the regular updates, because on Facebook, because on YouTube, I will only teach you guys. But if you guys need some study material, you guys need to clear your doubts. So you guys need to connect with me on these three platforms. One more thing is, please stop asking me these questions that, sir, that how to prepare for UPSC, how to prepare for UPSC. See, we are discussing all these subjects. So we will cover all these subjects before our preliminary examination. So have trust, guys. Okay. Don't ask questions such as what is the book list. As we are studying ancient Indian history, we have already discussed the book list. So please go with the flow. pick up one subject at a time. Some of the students are also asking me, sir, we are going very slow. No, we are not going very slow. All right, if we go too fast, we will not be able to retain. It's of no use if you are not able to retain anything for the examination. Now, please, if you know your friends who want to prepare for UPSC and they want a free platform for discussion, please bring them to UPSC Digital Library so that we can help maximum people. I hope this video was helpful to all of you. Thank you everybody for watching. God bless you.